thank you for attending this talk, and welcome to this talk, which is called Teaching Game Design Through Player Understanding. My name is Carlos Martinho. As Michael presented, I am a professor at Instituto Superior Técnico from the University of Lisbon, where I've been researching and teaching about games for 15 years. And this happens at the Tagus Park campus in Oeiras of our institute, and essentially those courses are given at the master's level. And our master is special because any student can choose any course they want. So they come, they choose the course they want, and they, as long as they get enough credits, they finish their masters. And based on the courses they have taken, then they will be given a specialization. So for instance, if you attend and be successful at game design, game development, computer graphics for games, and artificial intelligence for games, then you'll get a specialization in games in your background. And we also, at Tagus Park as well, we have a games lab, where many activities happens outside of the class. So, for instance, students are encouraged to participate in game-related activity even outside of the courses. So we have game jams, be them analog or digital, through the years. We have an annual event where all the students can present their work that they've been doing in courses, in research, or as a part-time hobby. They can come there, present them. We have the press, we invite the local game industry, and it's a very fun time. We have an alumni meeting every year with students that went to the industry and come back and talk about their experience. And we have regular events where simply you can come and talk about a specific topic that you are really passionate about. And today I want to talk about one of the courses we give, which is game design, which is one of the introductory courses, and how we've been using tabletops to teach game design. And the course is always evolving as game design. We are always trying new things and see what works. So what I will be talking now is 1 year where we fully embrace tabletop games in the curriculum. So when students come to our course, usually it's the first semester, they don't know each other, so we have to break the ice somehow. So the first time they come in the lab, we ask them right away to start working on something, which is something that we want. We want the labs to be active in terms of learning. So what you do, so sometimes I will see courses that they will give you an assignment, then they will send this assignment home, and then you come back and you submit your assignment, you get a grade. Here the idea is a bit different. You start working on the assignment right away. You do your individual work outside of class, but the teamwork you're expected to do actually in class. So here, the first thing we ask them is you have 30 minutes to think about the game that changed your life and present it to your colleagues. Right? And this usually is, wow, I never thought about that. And it's very interesting to see the results. And of course, we don't do this only to break the ice, because they will have to get to know each other, work together in teams. And at the time, some of them may be, not very comfortable with talking with each other. And so essentially, we enhance the player experience versus the formal system. So it's very easy to, I like this game because that's what you do in the game, rather than that's what I felt when I played this game, right? And sometimes it's something that you feel that was very important in your life at a certain moment of this life. So one thing you get out as a student, what we hope to get out, is that you will understand that there is no one game to rule them all, right? And even if you have a very commercial game, that doesn't mean this game has an impact, right? So it's very important to understand that, this game, most of the students will refer to a different game. In 70 students, it's very rare 2 students to mention one same game. And even when this happens, it's because of different reasons, right? So it's very important to they understand that they can actually design player experience that matter, rather than only, learn what makes a game commercial and successful. Okay, that's also an important part of the play, but this is for another course. Now, again, we try to have the labs as action-oriented as possible. So that's the place where the students will come, share their ideas, and play test. Because sometimes it's very difficult to play test, right? You, as a student, you have always a lot of deadlines you have to commit to, and rather than expect students to commit in teams of 3 or 5 or 6 and be able to playtest something, they can use we ensure that you have this time in the week so you can playtest your ideas. Right? Another thing, because we teach in games, we don't really believe in exams. So for instance, taking an example from digital games, after you finish a Halo, you don't do a Halo test, right? To pass Halo, right? Just the fact that you finish Halo, the game, right, is enough for us to say, okay, you get the grade. So essentially it's the same thing, and so it's only project-based learning. There is no theoretical exams and things like that. And also because of that, we want the students to rotate between teams. They will not be working always with the same teams through a semester. Actually, they will have individual assignments, and we will be rotating between different teams. So each assignment you will be assigned to a different team, and you will have to learn. And hopefully, if you're good in all the teams, typically it could be a good measure that you've been successful at learning all the tools we're providing to you. Now, the course is designed in terms of the labs in 4 main sections. So right from the start, we want the students to get designing things, because there's a lot of misconception from students about, oh, it's a board game, it's easy to design. Okay, so design it. We give you 2 weeks to come up with a design. But we even will make this easier for you. We'll take an easy in terms of mechanics and systems. We've been using X for like 10 years, and we have more than 100 variants of this game. So we'll take this game, which is, for instance, a 2-player game, make it a 3-player game. Right, you have 2 weeks to think about this. Oh, it should be easy, right? Now, the nice thing is also we get them into finding prototyping tools, using those tools. This is if you want a digital version of this game, you can do it in half an hour, and you can play test it with a lot of people. And also because the students will have to go through creating something, testing it, getting feedback, bettering it, they will understand what is actually difficult. Because sometimes if you just start lecturing, it's very difficult. They say, oh, this is all very obvious. But if you actually ask them to do things, they will feel the problems that are in the development, in the design, and they will be more receptive and motivated when we talk about those things in class. And also, we provide some tools that help them overcome some creative blocks. So we have several tools that we teach them, so they can actually not wait for the inspiration and can actually be going on and developing ideas. Now, then when this changes, when they finish, so they have 2 weeks. They come with the first one, they test it, they get feedback, they create a new version, and then they get feedback on the last. And there's a lot of peer reviewing, also from professors, but mostly this is just, we're not interested in the quality, we're interested in the process, and they understanding the difficulty that game design and even board game design, that most of them actually have a preconception that they think is easier, is actually pretty hard. Now the second step is they change to a different team, and now they have to make a review of a game. One thing we noticed from the earlier classes is that students will rarely cite a board game as the game that changed their life. So maybe there will be 2 in 50, 70 students. Of course, this is a computer science course. So essentially, we ask them to sit down, so they have to read the rules, come to class, play a game together, and then on the next class, we'll ask them some questions they have to answer about the game. And some questions will be about, okay, how do you think the game is balanced? How balancing is achieved? And we provide them some tools in class so they can actually analyze the game, but also for whom is this game for? And these are examples of games we have been using. Unfortunately, we cannot provide them with long games. Usually we use games that play around 60 minutes in class for the first time, when you're playing the game for the first time. So those are examples of classic games that we have been using. And they have to understand from who is this game made. And one thing we notice is from the literature, as Ivan was saying before, there's a lot of models regarding player modeling, what motivates players to actually play digital games. So we have Bartool, we have BrainX, we have game motivation models. There's a lot of models that have been used by the industry. But when we try to find something that we can actually provide the students so they can use to find for whom this game was made, there was almost nothing. So actually that's something that made us make a step forward and try to research this. Finally, the first step after they have done this analysis, they will have to think about an expansion idea. So for the rest of the course, they think, okay, now I've analyzed some games, maybe I should choose a totally different game, but essentially you can think about an expansion for one of the games you played and propose it. And they have to write a pitch for the game. This is anonymized, then the students will vote on the best pitch they think, and the most voted will get teams formed around. The proponent will actually pitch the idea, create a team, and from now then, it's not this person's idea, it's the team idea, it's changed, it's transformed into a high concept pitch, and then they'll have 2 iterations to implement something. And usually we try to make them create 2 scenarios in the game that show how the progression in the game functions. So maybe create a scenario, so those are the challenge in early game, those are the challenge mid-game. And so you can see that the game is not stale, it's actually evolving using the same systems and formalisms. Usually we have people from the industry that provides feedback, expert feedback on those speeches. And finally, just to wrap up, they have to document those designs. We have an eye concept and the game treatment. They have those 2 iterations with peer play testing, and they have to learn how to interweave the fiction with the mechanisms so that they make sense, as well as apply classic and modern map design. Now they have extra activities. They can earn credits by reviewing board games. We provide 5% as extra points. You will only believe that only 10% of students actually take this. So this has to say something, right? When we provide 5% of your grade can be improved if you just review and submit your review at the end, and only 10% of the students actually do this. We have, of course, invited talks, and we have external collaboration with other courses. So for instance, there's the management course, and we create teams where our students will provide the design and the idea and the initial prototyping, and there will be a team from management that will create the business plan, etc. So we try to mix those competencies. Now, going back to the motivation model, so we found this gap in the literature where there was no model that could explain why those players play tabletop games. So what we did is we followed the same way that personality models are created. For instance, the 5-factor model was created in this way. So we have a huge list of statements. So for instance, but the most important thing in the game is to win over my opponent. Okay, and we have maybe 100 of those items. Then with expert and we try to minimize so there is no repetition. We found 37 items. Those were then grouped into 12 dimensions, in the sense that people that usually answer high in this question will also answer high in another item. And we asked for 259 hobbyists with an average of 99 games possessed, and this was a process that went for 3 months to answer those questionnaires. And then we used, for those who know the principal component analysis, which is a statistical approach that helps us capture the correlation between those dimensions, meaning that, maybe if you like to manipulate something, manipulate your opponents, you also like to the game because of its social nature, etc. So here are the dimensions we found. So social, this is right on top. You enjoy social interaction with other players. You may seem okay, this is given. Not really, because the solo play, as in the early, most recent years, has kind of seen a resurgence, maybe because of COVID, but not only. Manipulation, so this is a dimension where you enjoy mind games, where the outcomes are determined by the ability to bluff, deceive, and persuade other players. Conflict, Players that enjoy games where players can take hostile actions directly against each other. Competition. They enjoy building strategy that directly oppose other players in the game and pursue goals that are directly conflicting with the other's goals. Challenge. They like to overcome obstacles while playing the game as they learn and need to think. Strategy. They enjoy games where strategic mastery and skill are the primary determinant of the game's outcome, rather than luck, for instance. Power. Motivated by accumulating or building a resource over time. Fantasy. People that enjoy fantasy-themed games or real-themed games to experience realities different from their own. Story, that they value game elements that help building up a story during play, and this story motivates them to play. Design, where you value all the aesthetic parts of what is included in the game. Object, where you find some special feature or affection for the physical elements of the game, which is only happening in board games. And discovery, you like to explore and have a broad interest in the rules, sets, and gaming mechanics. So again, what we did is took those 12 dimensions and we tried to see how they were correlated with each other and try to find a model that could explain the variation and what motivates player to play board games. So this is only for the Portuguese. We only interviewed Portuguese board gamers. So if you want to do this study in another country, please talk to me. We'll be very happy to have this data and see how actually the data matches. But we came out with those 5 dimensions that explain roughly 80% of the variance, which is a lot if you know about those models. So the first, we have the dimension of competitive interaction, which is a match of competition, power, and conflict. So players that score high in this dimension have an interest for hostile confrontation and the need to win. That's what motivates them to play. Social challenge, which mixes social manipulation and conflict. And players that score high in this dimension like to interact with others to ensure good player experience or victory, not necessarily victory, depends on the player. Sensory experience are a combination of design and object, which players that score high in this dimension value design, aesthetics, and the feel of the components. Intellectual challenge, that mixes challenge, strategy, and discovery. And players that score high in this dimension have interest on individual mechanism and they have to master to win. And final dimension is imaginative experience, which mixes fantasy, story, and social. And essentially, players that score high in those dimensions have an interest in all fictional dimensions of play. So actually, if you think about this, you can say, okay, when you play a game, you can look at this and say, okay, towards whom is this game made for, and what could I add, or what is it missing that usually players from this category enjoy. Now this accounts for 80% of the variance of the data we gather. Well, because this is a huge value, we try, okay, so let's try to have a smaller model. Maybe we can, and again, there are statistical approaches that tells us how many dimensions make sense. And we can consider only 3 dimensions for a simpler model, which we name SEN, so sim in Portuguese, or yes. And here we still have social challenge, so players that enjoy competing against other players. Imaginative experience, players that enjoy manipulating physical and fictional components. And mechanism exploration, we have players that enjoy discovering and showing their mastery of the mechanism. So usually those are the three most independent dimensions if you want to look at your players and understand what motivates them to play. Right? And again, it means that some people will just value this, some people will just value this, or a mix between them. Right? So this helps you structure when you are designing your game towards whom you are designing the game for, giving you a stronger player understanding. Now, if you want to know more about the details of the data and everything, this is we published a paper about this last year, which has a collaboration with Michael Souza. It's called the Player Motivation Model for Tabletop Games, and it was published in the Foundation of Digital Games 2023 international conference. And essentially, that's it. 20 minutes is very short. So thank you for your attention. I'll be around if you want to learn more about the way we teach game design, or more about the model and how you can actually help you understand or improve the design of the game you are thinking of exploring. So thank you.